Welcome to my channel, The Human Frontier. I had never intended to become anyone's hero. My days were filled with the mundane precision of a Terran combat systems engineer, maintaining the pulse shields and tactical protocols aboard the interstellar outpost Haven's Watch. Fighting? Diplomacy? Heroism? Not in my job description. But destiny, as I was about to learn, has an inconvenient way of ignoring titles and plans. It began on the outskirts of the Ilera Empire, a star system dominated by spire-like citadels, hovering cities, and a populace that revered hierarchy above all else. The empire was old, steeped in tradition, and ruled by a young empress named Kalara, a figure both brilliant and feared. Every move, every alliance, every gesture was scrutinized, and nothing was allowed to deviate from centuries of rigid protocol. That rigidity was about to collide with a human soldier, and that soldier was me. The first encounter occurred during a routine patrol along the Imperial borders. My unit, assigned to the observation and defense of the outer moons, had intercepted a distress signal. A lone figure moved through the dense gravitational haze of the moon's atmosphere, a Veilorian warrior, radiantly armored, yet clearly injured. I didn't hesitate. The mission's priority was to assess threats, not aid enemies. But something in her movement, the way she staggered yet maintained perfect poise, told me this was no ordinary soldier. She was exceptional, and she needed help. I activated my drop shuttle, descending rapidly through the silver clouds. By the time I reached her, her energy shield flickered and died. Her eyes, a piercing shade of violet, locked onto mine. There was no fear, only recognition, as if she had been expecting me. "You are human," she said, voice firm yet melodic. "And you came anyway." "I don't leave anyone to die," I replied simply. Her lips curved into a small, almost imperceptible smile. That was the moment I realized the stories were true. She wasn't just a warrior. She was Princess Aurelia, heir to the Valara throne and known for her unmatched prowess in both strategy and battle. The legends had not done her justice. I carried her to my shuttle, applying triage protocols and stabilizing her wounds. She didn't speak much during the flight, but her presence filled the cabin. Something in the way she observed my actions, calm, calculating, almost reverent, was disarming. By the time we reached the outpost, word of a human aiding the Imperial princess had spread like wildfire. The Empire's rules were strict. A Valerian royal could not accept aid from a human soldier except under extreme circumstances. Protocol demanded investigation, loyalty checks, and, in some cases, punishment. Yet Princess Aurelia had chosen me. Not as a diplomat. Not as a servant. Not as a subordinate. She had chosen a human. The political consequences were immediate. Imperial counselors demanded explanations, their voices filled with shock and outrage. "You allowed a human to tend to the princess?" one advisor spat. "The rules forbid such contact." Aurelia ignored them, stepping forward, her violet eyes blazing. "He saved my life," she said, "and I have the right to choose who I trust." Murmurs filled the chamber. A human soldier had just defied centuries of tradition, and the princess defended him. I was just following protocol," I said awkwardly, though her gaze silenced me before I could finish. Aurelia's hand brushed mine, a gesture small but deliberate. "Protocol is important," she said softly, "but life is more important." And he proved it. The room fell silent. Even the Empress, who had been observing from the dais, arched a brow. Over the next weeks, I found myself drawn deeper into the heart of the Empire. Aurelia and I trained together, her skill unmatched, my knowledge of technology a useful complement to her mastery of resonance weapons. We were an unlikely pair, but together we developed strategies that combined human improvisation with Valerian precision. Our partnership did not go unnoticed. Courtiers whispered, nobles debated, and advisors fretted over the implications. A human soldier in such close proximity to the Imperial heir challenged the very structure of their world. Rules that had governed generations were being broken, not with rebellion, but with quiet competence and mutual respect. Sorelia and I began to understand one another in ways neither of us had anticipated. We shared stories of our upbringing, our worlds, and our beliefs. I learned that the Volara Empire was not merely a monarchy. It was a complex network of alliances, traditions, and arcane resonance fields that connected their cities like veins of energy. She learned that humans were adaptable, resourceful, and, sometimes, unexpectedly courageous. The day everything changed came during the Council of the High Spires. Rebel factions had arisen in the outer territories, claiming the princess's dependence on human aid was a sign of weakness. A confrontation was imminent. The council demanded that I remain outside. It was forbidden for humans to fight in imperial battles. Sorelia, however, had other plans. "I choose him," she announced before the assembled nobles. "He is my strategist, my partner, and my choice for this battle." Gasps filled the chamber. Shouts of protest rose. The advisors cited laws, customs, and the sacred treaties of the empire. Sorelia stood firm. "The laws of this empire are meant to serve the people," she said, voice rising, "not to bind us in fear of our own choices. I choose life, I choose victory, and I choose him." With that declaration, the battle began. The rebellion struck swiftly. Outer spires fell under the assault of advanced resonance cannons, and the rebels' leaders moved with surprising coordination. I worked alongside Sorelia, synchronizing the Valerian resonance shields with human tactical protocols. Our combined strategies allowed us to predict attacks, reinforce weak points, and ultimately turn the tide. In the heat of combat, Sorelia moved with lethal precision, her blade resonating with a violet aura that sliced through the enemy lines. I provided cover, technical oversight, and improvised support systems to maintain our advantage. We were a single unit, a fusion of human ingenuity and Valerian mastery. When the final rebel ship fell, silence blanketed the battlefield. The outer territories were secure, the rebels defeated, and the empire intact. Yet the aftermath revealed more than victory. It revealed change. Sorelia's choice had shattered precedent. Humans were no longer merely tools or observers. We had proven ourselves allies, partners, even equals. And in choosing me, she had forced the empire to acknowledge that tradition must sometimes bend to necessity. Weeks later, the Imperial Council convened. I stood beside Sorelia once more. Her presence was calm, dignified, yet undeniably powerful. "You have shown courage, skill, and loyalty," the Empress said formally. "The Empire will recognize your actions, though it may take time for the laws to catch up." Sorelia's hand brushed mine in private. "We've changed more than rules today," she whispered. "We've shown that hearts and minds matter as much as law. And you, human, have shown me trust is worth breaking tradition." I smiled, realizing that everything I had once thought about insignificance, destiny, and duty was wrong. Sometimes, to be remarkable, one did not need to follow the rules. One needed to act when it mattered, even if it meant defying every expectation. We returned to the palace together, the Empire watching, whispering, and slowly learning that a human warrior could stand beside a princess, and that trust, courage, and choice could reshape an empire. And for me, it meant stepping into a life I had never imagined. Not just a soldier, not just an engineer, but a partner to a warrior princess who had defied centuries of expectation to choose me. The Empire's rules had been broken, but in their place arose something stronger. Unity, respect, and the proof that the improbable could, in fact, change the course of history. Thank you for listening. Subscribe for more cinematic science fiction stories.